Hello, everyone. Welcome to the RotoWire special show, Thanksgiving Day show. We're going to cover the 4 holiday games, 3 on Thanksgiving, 1 on Black Friday. Exciting time to be a football fan. Remember, there will be a special extra start sit stream Tuesday, 5 Eastern. So if you want those questions answered about players and those from those 8 teams we'll be playing early, that's when I'll answer those. Be happy to do my best to get you set up for them. We'll also have our usual start sit show Sunday at 11, Saturday, the gambling show. We will be off the air Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Hopefully everybody's at Thanksgiving. That's wonderful and enjoyable and great time with family and friends. And thank you. I appreciate every one of you out there in the audience for allowing me to be part of your fantasy football routine. I do not take it lightly. I work as hard as I can to give you the best I can. We make mistakes. We work together. But again, thank you. It means the world to me that you spend your time hanging out with me. Now, first thing, I'm going to be playing on SuperDraft for the Thanksgiving games. Here are some picks I'm going to make. I'll tell you about SuperDraft in a minute. But Jordan Love going over 33 and a half pass attempts. Now, he's gone over this number only in half of his games. But it's pretty easy to figure out when Jordan Love's going to have a big passing game. When Green Bay trails, he throws about 40 passes. When I break this game down, you'll hear I fully expect the Lions to be in control of this game. Jordan Love should sail well over that. Next one sounds tougher, but I like Dak Prescott over 34 and a half passing attempts. Now, Dallas in their last 3 games, I really think that the organization came to a realization that they are going to not have a sustaining running game. So they have to put the game plan on Dak Prescott's shoulders. So Prescott has thrown at least 35 passes in his last 3 games, and that includes 2 blowout victories. And that's important because if he's throwing that often in blowout wins, regardless of game script, he's going to jack up the pass attempts. So this number, I think, is not factoring in the recency. It's factoring in the full season, not the same offense now. And so in Washington also, they're better against the run than the pass. Again, I'll break that game down in a bit. Last one, I'm going to play 3 on SuperDraft. Breece Hall under 54 and a half rush yards. Now, he hasn't even cracked over 50 in his last 5 games. Miami's defense gets better and better week after week. There are injuries all along the offensive line. 3 players in IR. Mekhi Becton's expected to miss this game. And teams are just selling out to stop the run game and saying, you know what? The quarterback could beat us. In this case, it's Tim Boyle. Hall gets it done as a receiver, but these days not on the ground. Can he break a long run? Yes, but that hasn't been happening. All right, if you want to play on SuperDraft, here's our promotion. When you sign up with the promo code ROTO, R-O-T-O, you'll get a free leg to your parlay and $20 deposit bonus with a first-time deposit of $20 or more. Now, SuperDraft also, they have a discount on Thursday nights for Thursday Night Football. The community votes on which player they want to see discounted, and that is something you can get on for the promotion. Now, you can win up to 100 times your entry, but if you like to swing for the fence, like lottery type games, SuperDraft has a progressive jackpot player props. You make 12 picks. If you get them all right, you win an epic growing jackpot. All right, let's break these games down, but really excited about SuperDraft. Packers and Lions, the early game always. Packers, 7.5 point underdog to the Lions. Over and under on this game is 47.5. Now, the easy assumption is we won't see Aaron Jones in this game. Injured his knee, removed from the game. He's listed as questionable as Tuesday. I just don't see a world where there's any chance he suits up. I don't think I'm going to be wrong on this one. Green Bay has a lot of banged up players, and it's a very short week game. So they really come in at a big disadvantage here. Injury-wise for the Lions, actually, they're pretty clean. Early in the season, they put some players in IR, but left guard Jonah Jackson, he missed last week. He may miss this one as well, but the offensive line in its entirety is fantastic, and it's not great not to have Jonah Jackson, but this is a loss they definitely can withstand. Now, these teams met back in week 4. It was a night game, Thursday night game, I believe. Detroit blew them out. The final score was 34-20. Not that close. 27-3 at the half. Packers, as they've been prone to do, had some garbage time late with Jordan Love, but they were never seriously in this game. Now, we know this is a divisional rematch, and often divisional rematches are tighter. But we still have here The Lions are a borderline elite team. Not saying they're at the 49ers or the Eagles, but they're a borderline elite team. And the Packers are a team that's going to be fighting for the fringe playoff spot. And there's a very different class in teams here. And we know that. Now, what makes me excited about the Lions is they pulled out a big victory against the Bears. So it was almost like they had their letdown spot, knowing they had the big, Thanksgiving game coming up. They let down, but they still found a way to win that game. That speaks a lot to the character of that team and to the coaching. Let's start with the Green Bay side of the ball as we break this down. Now, Green Bay's offensive line has been odd. We know David Bakhtiari's out for the season, but all year, regardless of who's been in there, they have kept Jordan Love pretty clean. They're really a legitimate top pass protecting team. The run game, not so much. We've seen this year more than in other years. Many teams with this big disparity in run blocking and pass protection. In terms of run blocking, this line isn't opening up holes. It is not a good line. They are definitely in the bottom tier of the league in run blocking. Now, they face a Lions defense. This is definitely a defense that you want to attack through the air. So it's good that Jordan Love should get pass protection. The Lions probably will need to send some blitz pressure on obvious passing downs to take advantage. And I think they could get to the Packers that way. But you don't want to run on the Lions. The Lions are literally a top of the league run defense. All year, they have been outstanding against the run. And with Aaron Jones out, A.J. Dillon, a lot of his games, he's about 2 yards per carry. He does not look like the player he did as a rookie. He is definitely not he never really was super explosive anyway, but he is not running well. He's not getting help from the offensive line. And that Lions run defense is going to make it very difficult for him to produce. And we'll talk about him for fantasy in a moment. Now, where you can get to the Lions is in coverage. They can be passed on. If the blitz, they're going to need a blitzer. They can sometimes get home without their pressure is below average. It's right in the league middle range, but they're a tick beneath that. They have their moments. When they have a lead, though, this is a team that really can dial up the heat. So I think when we look at the entirety of their pass rush, I do think the Lions, if they get out to a lead, that's when they're going to be able to pin their ears back and tee off. And that's when their pass rush becomes very real. In terms of coverage, I don't know that the Packers right now have the passing game with Jordan Love. They have good receivers. We love Romeo Doubs and Jaden Reed. These are both going to be very, very good NFL players, but they're in a system now where they're very touchdown dependent because they don't get a ton of targets. When they do, we worry about the accuracy of those targets, and they're not players that defenses can't limit a bit. So there's a problematic there. Now, Dontavian Wicks has been coming on, but he got nicked up in Sunday's game, and he played about 30 to 40% of the snaps recently. But if he's nicked up, I just can't in good conscience recommend him for fantasy. If he's cleared for a full go, you might consider him a dart throw flex and episode, but he's been playing very, very well. Honestly, when you're watching these games, based on his role in the offense and how he's playing, he should be out there more than Christian Watson. But obviously, Christian Watson was a high draft pick, not been producing. So when we look at this, in the first game, Green Bay, they rushed like 12 times for 27 yards. Did not have it going on, as we talked earlier. The Lions are kind of shut down. Jordan Love did throw a couple of picks. Again, it was predictable, and when they got late in the game, he moved them a bit, but then the Lions were able to get some pressure, just stall them out. And so it worked out. So in this game, I do think that the Packers are going to trail. And I do believe that we're going to see a similar game to what we've seen earlier this year. But earlier in the year, when Jordan Love was making these heroic comebacks, the book's kind of out on him now. And when they're in an obvious pass mode, they are much easier to defend. And so I don't think they're going to be able to mount a monumental comeback. Now, if you're playing in a super flex league, of course, Love is a viable option here. And there should be some late production here. And so he's certainly a top 20 quarterback. And you look at all the quarterbacks that are out there now, there are like 8 quarterbacks in our league that don't even belong in starting NFL lineups. So obviously Jordan Love's not one of those. And so to fall in the top 20, yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's an aggressive ranking, but it's not, because we have a lot of bottom tier quarterbacks, again, in the rest of the league. A.J. Dillon, he's going to see some targets. They've been throwing in the ball some. So I don't think he's going to get much yardage on the ground. Even if he gets 12 carries, I don't know that he gets much over 20 to 25 yards. So when you're looking at the prop on him, you might go under the rushing yards because that's going to get boosted up if Aaron Jones is out. Don't bet that one early. They probably won't post a number early anyway. But if Aaron Jones, when he gets ruled out, Dillon may have an aggressive number. Going under that would make sense. But for fantasy, with targets, possibility of seeing something at the goal line, not that he cashes in there, he gets stopped at the goal a lot. But I think you frame him as a top 24 running back on volume this week. Now, if you're in a desperation deep league, like, you're one of those 14-team leagues and just there's nothing out there, here's just what I want to point out. He's not going to get a ton of work, but Aaron Jones, when he's been ruled out earlier in the year, practice squad player Patrick Taylor would get elevated and move into the backup role where Emmanuel Wilson remained the number 3. Now, Emmanuel Wilson popped his shoulder out of his socket on Sunday, and I'm hard pressed to think he'll be available. So we could see Patrick Taylor is more like a receiving back. And in a game where the Lions could have a big lead, if that's a projection you have, honestly, if you're playing like a single game slate or DFS, if you would do a punt play on Patrick Taylor, if he catches 4 passes and maybe something shakes out and he does something on 1 or 2 of those, that's something to definitely consider. Again, I'm not coming out here saying Patrick Taylor's the guy, put him in every line. No, deep leagues, desperation flex, and that's making sure Aaron Jones is ruled out. And that said, in DFS, again, you want that little punt play, the super cheap one, then we look at that. Romeo Doubs and Jaden Reed, they're fine every week, but they got to score a touchdown to cash. You're still trusting them as top 40 receivers in your fantasy lineups this week because they're going to get volume. Each should get roughly 5 to 6 targets, and it could be elevated a bit depending how much they have to pass. So there's that. But, we never know when one of them is going to score. They've been very good at finding the end zone. And I mentioned earlier, Dontavian Wicks, with him banged up, unless he's cleared as a full go. If he's cleared as a full go, you put him on the deep flex too, because he is seeing 4 to 5 targets a game for about a month now. And he's been very good with his opportunities. He does have chemistry with Jordan Love. And then, what do I tell you about Christian Watson at this point? He got the touchdown last week. I think that got him to 10 PPR points. That's an upside game for him right now. Is there a world where he catches a bomb? Yes. But we've had how many games? And I remember the one against the Raiders, and there was that. But Christian Watson right now, that's a pray for a TD flex. That's all it is. And obviously in many lineups, it's hard to consider him. Doubs and Jaden Reed are ahead of him in the fantasy radar. Now the Lions, when they have the ball, they probably have the best offensive line in the league this year. Minnesota's close. I don't think they're quite, but it's really, really close between them. Both are dominant blocking the run. Both are outstanding at pass protection. I mentioned earlier, left guard Jonah Jackson probably misses this one, but again, that rest of that line is so solid. They can overcome missing Jonah Jackson, who is an excellent player, but they can overcome that one. The Packers, the run defense is better than it's been in years past. This is now a middling run defense. But again, when you bring in that offensive line of the Lions, now you have a mismatch because an average run defense against such a talented offensive line with 2 excellent running backs, yeah, it's a problem. David Montgomery in that first meeting, 32 carries for $121. The yards per carry weren't great, but it was grinding out a lot in the second half, and he scored 3 touchdowns. Now, Jahmyr Gibbs was like 8 for 40 maybe in that game. Obviously, he wasn't the big factor in the attack at that point, but he is now. He's getting more snaps the last 2 weeks than Montgomery. So when we're looking at this, both of them should have very good fantasy days. Both of them kind of cap each other's massive upside, but they both have upside because they're both capable of scoring touchdowns and getting close to 100 scrimmage yards in a game. We've seen it already. And so you're starting both of them with confidence. The Packers, the coverage, they've always been better against the pass and the run. They play a lot of zone. But here's the thing. When you're playing zone against the Lions, Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator, is so good at deploying his receivers, quickly getting them open into the spots in the zone. And Jared Goff is so comfortable throwing against zone. And the Packers, yeah, they have Rashawn Gary, who on his own is a great pressure player. But again, we're talking about one of the best pass protecting lines in the league. So how much pressure are they really going to get? And this is below average pressure team altogether. So I just don't see them pressuring Jared Goff. But overall, here's the thing, game script wise, Goff often plays better at home than on the road. I don't know how much they have to throw. Because if it's one of these where Montgomery ran 32 times and Gibbs ran 8, unless it's 40 rushing attempts, right? And at home, if they get a lead, they're very happy. This is a team that they know they can just shorten the game, end it, say goodnight, and, like the Eagles do, just end the run. Well, so look, that doesn't diminish Amon-Ra St. Brown, because obviously as the primary read in the offense, he'll get his, you always can have a ceiling, and he always can get 100 yards and a touchdown. I think the pass attempts will be a little lower here. I think he's closer to that 75-yard range. Good chance of scoring always. He's so heavily used there. Sam Laporta, Green Bay is a little above average against tight ends. It's not a bad matchup in any way. If you've been starting Laporta, just continue to play him as you normally would. You definitely do that. But again, he could always score a touchdown, but I don't know how much passing volumes. Josh Reynolds has kind of disappeared. Jamison Williams is big player bust. And so outside of that, but yeah, obviously those 2 running backs, you're dialing them up. In terms of Goff, if you feel there's a way the Packers can hang and keep this close, he would throw more otherwise. But outside of that, I think he's closer to quarterback 12 to 15 because the running game could just take over here. But again, if they have to throw, Goff is with his receivers against zone. It really is a good styles make fight for that Lions passing if they need to. All right. And then, so overall, how does this game come out? Well, when I predicted the line 7.5 right now, over and under is 47.5. My actual prediction for the game was 31-16, which is at 47. That tells me that's close enough to the projected score to probably lay off the over and under. But I do have Detroit, especially after the scare they had with Chicago last week, and how much better they are and control the Packers first time. I think they have the advantage of the rematch. I don't think the Packers come and say, well, if we do this and that, we make this closer. I think it's the Lions dictating to them. And I do think the Lions, again, win this one handily. Do you like the hook? No. You always could go to the alternate spreads like on DraftKings, and you could move that down to 6.5, pay a little more freight in case it ends on a 7. And that might not be the worst idea in the world, but I am fairly comfortable laying the 7.5. Hey, if you're enjoying the show, please consider hitting the like or subscribe button. And if you will like a free trial at RotoWire, check out all of our content. I wrote a Thanksgiving Day preview. Well, I should say preview. This is the preview, but what I did on the RotoWire site, we put up a cheat sheet. So if you're playing like in a 1-day draft league, I ranked out every player. I even got the fullbacks there. I got everybody on that list. And then we do some pie rankings, some sides rankings. If you want a free look behind the paywall at RotoWire, and you can check that article out, you go to rotowire.com/Jim, and we'll definitely get you set up there. Charlene has a gut feeling about Donovan Peoples-Jones. What I will say is Donovan Peoples-Jones' snap share was extremely low last week. Jamison Williams played over 50%, I believe, top of my head. And so I believe Peoples-Jones did not get enough snaps to be a factor. And as I did mention, he's being used a little bit more as a blocker. But hey, on a Thanksgiving Day slate, we see it time and again. That player who nobody has comes out of nowhere and does something. So if you're feeling frisky on a DFS slate, like I said, Patrick Taylor's that guy. I'm going to make, the cheap one if Aaron Jones is assumed out. But hey, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Charlene, I definitely get it. And Andrea's in the house. Welcome. All right, let's go next to Commanders at the Cowboys. We've seen this game many times on Thanksgiving. Cowboys always at home for this one, as the Lions are in the early game. Cowboys are 11-point favorites and 48.5, a big total. We got a couple big totals in this one. 47.5 in the early game, 48.5 here. The Commanders on offense. I want to give Eric Bieniemy a ton of credit. What he did was he realized the crazy rate that Sam Howell was taking sacks at. And what he did was he set up so the ball is getting out quickly. And the advantage the Commanders have over many teams, look, they've got some really good receiving options. I mean, you go with Terry McLaurin, you go with Jahan Dotson, Logan Thomas, and even their ancillary players. De'Ami Brown is going to be a player in this league. I mean, even Jamison Crowder when he plays it, they're putting a whole bunch of guys in. They're putting Byron Pringle in, not that he's a earth shaker or anything, but they put a lot of receivers out there that can do different things. They all get some targets, right? And but that quick passing game has really helped them. They give Brian Robinson enough carries, but this is not a run-heavy team. It's common for Howell to throw 45 passes. I'm nervous in this one. The Giants held this offense of the Commanders down twice. And the Giants' pass rush got better as the season went on. So now, in comes Dallas. Divisional opponent. I think what Dallas will do here is, I think they're going to want to disrupt the timing of the routes. Dallas plays about 45% man coverage. This is, all teams play a lot of zone. 45% man in this day and age is really, really high. And I think what them playing man is, they're going to get hands on the receivers and that pass rush. They're going to try to get this pass rush just coming in very fast. Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, even Dante Fowler when he rotates in. They're going to be able to bring some real pressure on Sam Howell. And Sam Howell's in trouble here because the speed, the Micah Parsons speed, it's going to be a real problem here. Overall, even if he's getting it out quicker, it's insane how fast Parsons leads his pass rush into a backfield. And Howell is not going to have good sight lines here because Dallas's corners are playing well. Deron Bland has really stepped up since Trevon Diggs was out. Stephon Gilmore's been fine, not playing at the elite level he did years ago, but he's playing fine. And Commanders are okay in pass protection. They're middling, but this is Dallas. Dallas at home, right? In terms of the running game, the first thing is Cowboys don't give up a lot of receiving yardage to running backs, and that's going to be interesting because Eric Bieniemy definitely throws plenty of screens. Now, we don't know if Antonio Gibson's playing. He missed last week with a toe injury. That'll be interesting to see what happens with that. But Robinson saw some receptions, definitely 8 targets last week, I believe, with Gibson out. But I think overall, yeah, the speed of the Dallas defense is going to make it tough for the running back receiving game, and that'll hurt Sam Howell. Logan Thomas should have a little bit of busyness in this one. But again, this is one of those games where Dallas can really put this offense in a bind. So in terms of how we look at how the players for fantasy, look, Terry McLaurin, you start him no matter what. Doesn't matter. Terry McLaurin's a superstar. If he ever had played with an elite quarterback, we'd be talking about him in the top 7 receiver discussion frequently. I don't think we'd put him up there with the Jeffersons, Chases, Tyreeks, and A.J. Browns of the world. But in the next tier, I think Terry McLaurin would be in that. And you see it time and again. Bad matchups, but he somehow gets 50 to 75 yards. Often he scores a touchdown. As bad as the matchup is, I just don't think in good conscience you bench him. Now, Jahan Dotson has been up and down. He had a few good games, but there's been a lot more downs. This one isn't because of the pass rush. This is going to be problematic. Curtis Samuel, he's middling, then he drops. And again, I'm not optimistic. Samuel might be a deep flex. I think when we're looking at maybe Dotson, maybe low end wide receiver 3, but I think a flex is better here. Brian Robinson, he'll get some volume here, but I don't think it's going to pan out too much. I think you're looking at about 50 yards, maybe 60 with the receiving in there. You're not going to be much in that. 30% chance of scoring a touchdown. So, but you're going to keep using him as a running back too, because you probably have rode him to this point, and he does get usage. So there's that. Especially with Gibson out, he gets his usage bumped up a bit. So there was that. Logan Thomas, I think you start as you normally would, because that middle of the field, that'll be an outlet, and he's a very big target. He's reliable. So there's that as well. So, and then otherwise, when I think about the Dallas side of the ball, they have morphed. I don't give Mike McCarthy a lot of credit often, and a lot of times he hasn't earned it. But what he's did here is impressive. I think Dallas realized, and I've learned this from the last 3 games, the Dallas running game, it's not sustaining. The offensive line is not any longer that elite line. They're good. They're even very good at times, but they're not elite anymore. And now Tony Pollard, we've seen in the lead role. We talk about this in many of the shows, but Tony Pollard is not hitting those consistent explosive runs. The defense plays to his speed as opposed to the Zeke Elliott speed. He's no longer the changeup. He's the guy. And so we've seen it. That offense does not sustain rushing attack. Rico Dowdle's fine. But again, same thing. He's not going to sustain a rushing attack. So what Dallas has done is they have ramped up the passing volume. That even in like the Carolina game, Dallas had 2 recent blowouts. And in both of those blowouts, Dak's just throwing the ball. And that's telling me something, because those are the games you typically don't throw the ball. Well, this Dallas team will. And the Commanders, just any numbers you've seen on their defense for the season, kind of throw them in the garbage, because once they traded away Chase Young and Montez Sweat was a good run defender, obviously good pass rusher, and Chase Young was having a solid season as a pass rusher. But losing them, they got their tackles, Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne, excellent. But now Dallas isn't running the ball much. And if Pollard does, they probably want to try to get him to the outside a bit more. So there might be a little something there. But realistically now, they're not getting pressure. This defensive line, they're not going to be pressuring Dak Prescott. And corners, they're not having a good year. And CeeDee Lamb, massive mismatch. Obviously, it's almost everybody, right? Jake Ferguson, it's a middling matchup for him, but he's going to be just fine. We never know what Brandon Cooks is going to be like. We never know if he's going to get used heavily. But in 3 of the last 4 games, he's definitely come through with like 14, I believe, PPR points. So he's definitely been solid. So in terms of Dallas, yeah, fire him up. Dak again should keep throwing, and there's nothing scary about this matchup. And obviously, CeeDee Lamb is a very top of the rock player for the week. Clearly, Brandon Cooks, I think you definitely put in the top 30 to 34 wide receiver range. There's always some floor potential, but there's a great opportunity here. Michael Gallup is he's more of a desperation flex, because he had a game with 10 targets about 4 weeks ago, but that's not the norm for him. It's kind of going away from him a bit. Jake Ferguson seen that uptick in work, and Jake Ferguson is a solid start most weeks, depending who else your other tight ends are, but you're starting him with the typical confidence. Same thing with Tony Pollard. He's a running back too. You drafted him to be a running back 1. He's not, and that's fine. He will continue. He probably gets you 60 to 70 scrimmage yards. He scored twice this year. He scored last week, which is good, but there's probably a 30% chance he scores. And so you play him as you normally do. His floor should be reasonable, right? Rico Dowdle, Dallas could get a big lead in this one. And if Dallas has a big lead, he could get you 7-8 carries late. And depending what that does for you and what your size of your league and your roster depth is, he could get you 35 yards if it works out that way and Dallas has the bigger lead. If they don't, he might not be very relevant in this game. So there's that. So otherwise, look, Dallas has been taking care of business. We've seen games where the Commanders have looked good. This is not a good team right now. Dallas wins this one 31-16 in my mind. Now the over and under is 48.5. Excuse me. I'm sorry about that. But it's a 1.5 under. And I think there's value going with the under here, because Dallas could theoretically put so much pressure on Sam Howell that basically they give up. They're not able to get the pass game going. And so this one has a decent probability going under. Dallas is -11. I have them winning by 15. Again, Dallas has been very good, and their defense plays. I mean, when they're winning, they don't slow down. They keep coming. It's like they want to post some records, right? So I'm comfortable with the Cowboys laying the wood here, 11 points. All right, we have 2 more games. We're going to do the Thursday night game, and we're going to do the Black Friday game. All right, so we go 49ers and Seahawks. 49ers 6.5. That line will fluctuate a bit. You'll see it at a 7. You may even see it at 7.5 at some point. 43.5 over and under. That's pretty reasonable for these teams. Ken Walker is not expected to play. After the game, Pete Carroll's like the ultimate injury optimist, and his comments made it sound like, yeah, Walker's going to miss some time. And it's a short week. It was a significant oblique or abdominal injury, something like this. And so, yeah, it seems like there's a less than 5% chance he plays. So I would not count on him in this game. And that's problematic. We'll talk about that in a minute. Geno Smith, now it's interesting because he set out a good deal of that Rams game, which they called an injury to the elbow or tricep area, like a bruise. But here's the thing. He came back in the last drive and he had some success moving the ball. But here's the nature, and we know this with injuries, they swell up. And so he was still, in that moment where, you have adrenaline, And if you ever sprained an ankle in a basketball game, or you're able to, it's a low ankle sprain, right? It's like you're able to gut it out, you finish the game, and then all of a sudden it blows up after the game, and next day you're like, oh, not so good. This is not an ankle, this is but the throwing arm, right? And it's a short week. And so if this injury is of any significance and there's any swelling, and he has to throw a football, and then he has to deal with the 49ers pass rush, I don't know how this is looking. I think ultimately, so the Seahawks, that was a big loss they had to the Rams. That's 2 losses to them. They have like a brutal schedule. They have the 49ers twice in the next 3 weeks. Maybe Philadelphia. I'm trying to think of the third team. They have a brutal short-term schedule. I want to say it's almost 4 games even. This could put them in a really bad spot for the playoffs. But I think if they're thinking of they got to get through this, if Geno Smith's not close to 100% and they risk making it worse, you almost got to sit him and give him that 11 more days to the next game to heal up. So we'll see how that happens. All right, start with the 49ers side of the ball. Break this down side by side. So the 49ers, the pass blocking hasn't been good. Now, some of that was we missed Trent Williams for a few games, so there was that. But the rest of the line is not great. But here's the thing. The offense gets the ball out so quickly for Brock Purdy, it doesn't really matter because the plays are schemed open quickly. So the pass protection is not great. So Shanahan understands that. And they dial it up to get it out quickly. But they're very well-designed plays. We know this. That's a Shanahan offense. The run blocking's been amazing. It's been outstanding. Christian McCaffrey certainly makes them look good, right? For sure. Now, the Seahawks run defense last year was atrocious. They're actually a solid middling defense, I guess, to run this year. Bringing Bobby Wagner was huge for them. Jordan Brooks, a good tackler. Bobby Wagner makes a real difference in there. And so the interior run defense is quite good. And we know the coverage for the Seahawks, Devon Witherspoon has really worked out as a rookie corner for them. And of course, we have Reek Woolen on the other side. But here's the thing. When you talk about the 49ers receivers, they're not classically challenging you just on basic routes. We are getting the ball in their hands on quick hitters, some multiple layered routes that are not common to defend. Shanahan is the king at scheming his players open, and Brock Purdy has multiple options to go to. And so overall, the matchup on paper for the 49ers receivers is not good. But do we think for a minute that if Brandon Ayuk gets 7 targets, he's not going to get you 65 plus yards, maybe more? So there's the superstars of this offense. They have the advantage. The question we always have with the 49ers is who is going to get the ball. Now, the last 2 times, including the playoff game last year when the Seahawks played the 49ers, they were really frisky dealing with McCaffrey. I mean, they were coming at him, but they just rode McCaffrey. Like the first game, 26 carries to get to 100 yards. He, of course, scored. He's not found the end zone in that Jacksonville game in his whole tenure with the team. And he caught 6 past 30. The second time in the playoffs, 15 carries for $119. So they were frisky early. But then, Mark points out Seahawks do play back-to-back Thursdays. Mark, if you could tell me who they play. If it's Philly, I can't remember, but it'd be awesome if you type in there who they're playing. I don't have the schedule in front of me. But anyways, we're talking about this. So McCaffrey, again, scored a receiving touch. So McCaffrey's just going to get his. We know that, and that's the problem. Defenses just don't know how to handle it. So the Seahawks, either at home here, but Brock Purdy is understanding and well utilizing his weapons, and there's nothing the Seahawks can do to take them all away. There's always going to be the default. We can never tell you who's going to have the big game. Is it a Kittle game? Is it an Ayuk game? Is it a Debo game? We know it's a McCaffrey game, but that's always the thing. You start them all, and you understand there could be a floor game for any of them at any time, but you don't want to miss the ceiling games. And I think that's the whole point. So with the 49ers offensively, no reason to think they are not fine. Division opponent, seen them plenty. Nothing on defense they're not going to have, not seen before. And the more Shanahan sees you, the more Shanahan knows how to attack you. So wheels up on your 49ers as you normally would. And obviously the ancillary players, not worth playing. Mitchell's not uncommon for Z4 carries. Now here's the thing with Mitchell, though. I'll point this out. It's a Thursday night game. The last time there was a short week game, the ancillary running backs, and I don't know if it was Mitchell or Mason, but they got extended work. And I think they understand about not wearing out McCaffrey. So if the 49ers get a lead in this one, maybe if you're playing that DFS 1-game slate, you might make a consideration for Mitchell. You also might make a consideration if it's like a deep flex, just because it's a short week. Now it's a narrative, and it might not happen. But again, if you're scraping, Oh, Mark, thank you. Yeah, so it's yes. So the Seahawks have the 49ers Thursday, then they have Dallas next Thursday, and then they get the 49ers the following week. And that's a rough patch of scheduling for them. Absolutely it is. Thank you for sharing that. Seahawks side of the ball. So the pass protection hasn't been what we'd like to have been. We loved last year the two tackles they drafted. One's just coming back from injury recently, but overall it's been okay, but it's definitely not a strong pass protecting unit. And this is a tough draw because once the 49ers added Randy Gregory, and again, he's not going to see a lot of snaps, but he'll see pass down snaps. And then they, of course, bring in Chase Young. Now when you have Chase Young and Nick Bosa and Javon Hargrave in the middle, now as an offensive line, what do? They all require double teams, and you can't double them. You can double someone, and Hargrave busting up the middle, it's a problem. And Geno Smith, if he plays, and Geno, all quarterbacks are worse under pressure. Geno, it's going to be a problem. And last year in the playoffs, he was able to, put something together when they fell behind, made a nice little comeback. I think he threw for 300 yards in that game, maybe. This pass rush is different. This is way, way, way different than what they had. And they're coming, and they are hunting. And the problem is Ken Walker. We don't expect him to play with that abdominal injury. Zach Charbonnet's a real nice back. I love Zach Charbonnet. Loved his draft profile. Kenneth Walker has explosiveness to his game. He challenges the defense to the edge. The defense has to be concerned with the big play. You're not worried about that with Zach Charbonnet. You that 4-yard per carry. He's a good running back, but it's not anything that's going to challenge the 49ers defense. Now, the 49ers run defense was a real problem up to a few weeks ago. But once they added Chase Young, he's not a good run defender. That's not my point. But the offensive lines, they have to be so freaked out about both of him, Bosa, and Hargrave in terms of pass pro. What happens is now the 49ers, their linebackers, they're much more freed up because of the attention those pass rushers require. So now the linebackers are flying around. And by the way, Hufanga, the safety, is out with an ACL. That a tough injury. They'll test their depth there, but in this game, that should be fine. But I'm telling you, with the pass rush, you don't cover as long, and that's going to be interesting. Now, Hufanga could also come down to the box sometimes too. But again, I think in this particular game, not going to be problematic. If Walker was playing, it makes a little bit of a difference. But again, for fantasy, again, Geno's problematic. We don't know if he's playing or not. If he plays, you got to have him outside the top 15 a little bit, because if that arm is a problem, there could be an in-game setback. He's going to be under a lot of duress, could take multiple hits there. I would not guarantee Geno finish. And if they fall behind, it might not be garbage time, because Pete Carroll might say at this point, if they're down 2 scores and they don't think they can come back, they might, for his health, pull him. Because, again, they got a brutal schedule coming up, and they can't afford to be without him longer. So be careful there. Charbonnet, look, he's going to get volume. He's going to get some targets, right? Now, 49ers do give up reception and receiving backs. So there's that. So I think Charbonnet, you start him as a top 20 running back for volume. I don't think it's a big ceiling, but hey, if they get in the red zone, he could score, right? So there's that. But I think it's a volume, and I think he gets 4 to 5 targets in this game, because they're going to have to mitigate the pass rush. So I think that you play him as an RB2, and again, the 49ers defense looks much better against the run since they've added those players in. Their coverage has been great. Now, DK Metcalf, we've seen some big battles with him and Charvarius Ward. But again, if Geno isn't able to drive the ball to him, or if Geno doesn't start, DK is risky. DK right now is a floor play this week. Play him as a floor play. Consider him a wide receiver 3 this week. You consider him better every other week. Consider him a 3. Again, I'm worried about the deep ball and with the pressure coming. So Tyler Lockett, again, just like Metcalf, maybe a wide receiver 3 here, because I think it's going to be problematic. I don't think the downfield pass gets coming here. Jackson Smith and Jigba, he getting the targets every week. Only 22 yards maybe last week on 6 catches. But I think PPR wise, I think you can flex Smith and Jigba. I think that he's playing more snaps now. They still play heavy 2 tight end sets, but they're going to trail most likely in this game. And they trailed. That's the game we saw his snaps ramped way up. So we could see Smith and Jigba be rampant, being in the slot frequently. Yeah, he could get an extended targets here, and he could be a player to mitigate pass rush as well. So I think Smith and Jigba is an upside flexer for sure. He has real upside for catch potential. Wouldn't surprise me if 49ers get a big lead, that he catches 7 balls in this game. And that'd be huge, right? Yeah, and challenging the inside against the 49ers is a better route than going Diameter Lenoir, the other outside corner. He's playing well. Last year, people were making a joke out of him. No, he's improved. He's playing good football this year. All right, that said, obviously, we're not starting the tight ends. They all get 1 to 2 touches targets a week. Not the tight ends aren't really viable. If you're in a DFS thing, the one who has the most chance of making a big play would be Fant. But again, 49ers against the tight ends, they're very good. Fred Warner often will lock down on one of them. They're tough. If the one most likely to catch 3 passes might be Parkinson. His targets have been down lately, but again, I wouldn't fool with them. Outside of that, look, divisional game. Pete Carroll typically find a way to keep things close. I'm predicting the 49ers 23-16. I think they can win by more. But again, divisional matchups, they often are much closer than we think they're going to be on paper. The paper, you kind of throw it out to a degree. It could, if Geno doesn't play, bet the 49ers lay the points, because they will, with no Ken Walker either, they're going to be in real trouble here. I do have this game going under the posted total, 43.5. I have it going to 39. I think we're safe with that. I think that's obviously no sure things in betting. I think there's a 60 to 62% probability it goes under in this one. But again, I would bet that the 49ers minus the points here. Black Friday game, last one. Miami Dolphins minus 10 at the Jets. Over and under a 40 on this one. Mekhi Becton, who's been playing left tackle, he's actually stayed reasonably healthy this year. Not this week, not playing. They already are down Dwayne Brown. Now he's on the IR to return. I'm not sure he's playing. I don't think he's coming back for this one. We already know Elijah Vera Tucker is down for the season. They lost. Connor. It's not Connor McGregor. That's a fighter. But Connor. I can't think of his last name. But he's on IR as well. So they were a bad line, and they are down bodies. The Dolphins are legit on defense. They're getting better every week. We said in the beginning of the season that Vic Fangio scheme takes a little time. They get better as weeks go on because there's a lot of communication. They'll do things with their zone. They play a lot of defenders back. They don't want to give the explosive play, but they communicate really well. But they can morph from game to game. When they face a team like the Jets, they're not going to respect the downfield passing attack. Then that defense is going to be compressed in because Tim Boyle, a quarterback. Yeah, I don't think they're too worried about that. So that's what we're looking at. Now, all that said, the Dolphins have been very good against the run, and they get better week to week. They have some really good front seven defenders, and knowing the defense in the back end can hold up, especially with Jalen Ramsey back, it frees them up to do more. And again, when teams play the Jets, they're just looking to stuff the run and Breece Hall. And Breece Hall hasn't had over 50 yards rushing in 4 games. He gets it done as a receiver. But as a runner, defense, it's not Breece Hall's fault. Not at all. But he has no blocking. And defenses are gunning to stop him because they know, all right, Garrett Wilson can only do so much through the air because of his quarterback, not because of Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson's a superstar too. So Tim Boyle is not an upgrade. Tim Boyle was Aaron Rodgers' caddy. Basically, that's what he was. And Aaron Rodgers brought his buddies over. So I think Tim Boyle is just another one of his buddies. As to why Trevor Siemian doesn't get promoted, and I know Trevor Siemian's not good, but he's got an arm, and he's played in NFL games. But it's almost like Robert Saleh has his national game. It's like, well, if I roll Tim Boyle out there and he looks worse than Zach Wilson, then I don't look so bad for starting Zach Wilson. I don't know. I can't speak a man's heart. No idea. But to put Tim Boyle out there, don't get it. Don't get it at all. But anyway, not an upgrade. And the only viable option is Garrett Wilson. Alan Lazard, nice blocker. If he has a good quarterback, he's fine. We don't need to spend much time on this. They scored, 1 touchdown in 40-something drives? They're probably not scoring a touchdown against Miami. And Miami's going to get a bunch of short fields here. And Miami's pass rush, they have a number of good pass rushers. They're going to get to the quarterback. They're like a top 5 pressure rate team. And so if the Jets score 9 points, I think it's a victory for them. I don't think they score a touchdown. So we don't need to say more. Breece Hall, if you're in a PPR league, start him as a top 24 and hope he catches 5 passes for you, because he does find a way to get it done in the passing game. He maybe could get you 65 total yards. So, and if And again, they're probably not going to score a touchdown. He scored the one last week. That's the only touchdown they've had in a long time. But he probably doesn't score here. But again, that's what you're getting. Garrett Wilson, the downgrading quarterback, last week 2 for 9, I think. PPR, wide receiver 3, hope that he gets 8-9 targets and he catches 4 or 5 of them. But I think that Zach Wilson probably was better for him than Tim Boyle will be. It's tough to say, and I roster him in a lot of leagues, but, kind of not helping right now. So, and Tyler Conklin, he fell off last week, but I can't say that Tim Boyle's going to get him the ball. So I can't even in good conscience recommend Tyler Conklin as a tight end. So I'm just completely out of the Breece Hall. And again, the floor that Garrett Wilson gets you, that's about it. Miami side of the ball. So obviously the Jets have been a great defense. It looks like they're discouraged. They're starting to fall off a bit. I mean, obviously when you have to be on the field so often because your offense can't stay on, it wears on you. And when you're constantly defending short fields at some point, but what an elite defense. I mean, great run defense. They cover like nobody's business. You can get them in the middle of the field. They pressure extremely well. They can get dinged in the receiving game, the running backs, and they're adequate against tight ends. But Miami, what are they trotting out a tight end? Durham Smythe is questionable. He isn't even a factor in the offense. But here's the thing. Tyreek Hill speed, right? As great as Sauce Gardner is, the way to get Tyreek Hill the ball doesn't matter. DJ Reed, very good corner, but it doesn't matter. Now, Robert Saleh is going to have some answers. And we've seen it before. Good defenses when they play Miami. What they can do is, because they have a good pass rush. So you get handsy with the receivers at the line. You do anything you can to jam up. Now, Mike McDaniels has been very good at getting Hill in motion to keep defenders' hands off him. So there's that. But it hasn't always worked. And so I do think the Jets on a national stage here, at home game, I think they're going to have some answers for the Miami offense. I think they're going to be able to get some quick pressure on Tua. And that gums it up for Tua. It makes it difficult. Saleh's a very good defensive coach with great personnel. So I don't think Miami goes off on the scoreboard. In terms of who you're starting, so Achane had the knee injury left. I'd be hard-pressed to think he's back for this game. Be very hard-pressed to see him playing in this one. And we saw Selvin Ahmed moved into the secondary role. As Jeff Wilson hasn't been a factor. So Ahmed will see some work. Mostert saw significant work when Achane went out last week. Mostert's going to be used as a receiver a bit here. And this is a good opportunity for him too, because the Jets do not defend receiving backs well. They're like bottom 5 against them. And so I think Mostert's like a high-end RB2 this week, like running back 15 or so. And he could have a big game. He could have a big game with his speed. But I would still just put him in the RB2 range because the Jets are going to be strong on defense here. Now, Tyreek Hill, obviously, no need me to tell you, but maybe a diminished ceiling. Maybe he doesn't have that 140-yard game. Maybe he gets you 80, 75. I don't think he goes off here. I think Tyreek Hill has one of his moderate games. Actually, I would probably closer to put him near 60, 65 yards. I would never bet the under on his prop because he just needs one catch and he could be running for hours. So I'd never bet the under on his prop because of his ability to bust it in one play. But I don't see it as a ceiling game. Jalen Waddle, I don't know how much volume there's going to be here. You play him as a top 24 receiver because the volume is inconsistent week to week, and that's it. Tua's fine. He's not going to probably have a ceiling game here again. I think the Jets at home are going to be okay. Overall, start Tua in your top 10 quarterbacks because, again, if Tyreek takes one to the house, Mostert takes a screen and goes with it, this could really turn Tua's fates around fast. So I wouldn't be scared off of starting Tua in any way in this game. I just don't know that it's one of those 400-yard games that, occasionally he has for us. So I think that covers that side. Now, the prediction for the game, Miami's going to have some short fields here, So when we look at the short fields, Miami is not going to have to do a lot on offense to win. And I don't think the Jets are scoring 10 points. So when I look at there's 2 bets I like in this game. I like the Jets under 14.5 points. And then the second one is I will lay the 10 points at Miami. I have them winning 24-9. And again, the Jets might not score those 9 points. Teams usually find a way to score. Tim Boyle, scary. And if Miami gets a defensive touchdown, the spread could get bigger. It could get bigger. So I don't mind laying the 10 on the road here at all. Like the Dolphins better at home. I just think that offense is going to be too broken, and the Jets defense can only do so much. And don't discount Miami's defense scoring, like I said. Outside of that, all right, that's the breakdown. And I will take a couple of user comments. I can take those now. And if you have start-sit questions, and if I have one or two, I'll take these now. But I'll be doing a start-sit stream Tuesday at 5 Eastern because there are 8 teams playing by Friday. And then we'll do our weekend show. We'll be off Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, so the show won't run. Saturday we'll be back. Gambling and DFS show. Sunday, the regular start set. All right, let's see. We got her. Andrea was in the house. Thank you for coming. Charlene, always glad to see you as well. Albert, excited to see you here as well. Admiral Nita, add which defensive special team? Detroit against Green Bay, New Orleans at Atlanta, or the Giants against New England? Saints on the road, usually not as good as the Saints at home. I do think Detroit's going to play with the lead here, and I do think Jordan Love is prone to throwing interceptions. And I said earlier in the breakdown, I think that when the Lions have a lead, they're more likely to blitz. And I think that because the pass pro for the Packers is very good, but when they start setting extra pressure, I don't think they're equipped to handle that. The Giants, man, well, they're going to play maybe Bailey Zappi. We don't know who the quarterback is. At this point, I do like the Lions. You got to go with the Giants here. I mean, the Patriots, they don't have any deep threats. They're so dysfunctional on offense. I'll go with them. And then, Mark, thank you again for telling us about the Seahawks with the back-to-back Thursday games. Matt's in the house. See what Matt's got. Do I like Charbonnet more than Ramondre or Jalen Warren? PPR. All right, so let's think this one through for a minute. When we're thinking about this game, Charbonnet, I said he's like more of a high-end running back. He should catch 4 or 5 passes here. So I think there's that, and I think we're excited about that. And now when we look at the other games, let's see. We have Stevenson against the Giants. Overall, it is a good matchup. The Giants, earlier in the season, were not giving up any passing yards to running backs. They've softened a little on that lately. But I think ultimately, the Stevenson's blocking is so bad. I like Charbonnet over Stevenson. I like him over Stevenson. I think there's more receiving work for Charbonnet than for Stevenson. Jalen Warren. Yeah, he has been so explosive. He's very think this through here. And I give the wrong player. Stevenson was a Giant. And then Warren. Let me just double check who they're playing again to make sure. They're playing. The Bengals are terrible because they're terrible on defense. They can't stop the run. They can't stop the pass. They lost Joe Burrow, so they're probably a lot of their spirits broken. I think Warren has more upside than them. I think Charbonnet has a more solid floor, but I think Warren's floor is close enough that I would play him for the upside. He is playing at a very high level right now. And then Adam, the Thursday, Friday games are gross. Yeah, they are gross. Right. If Geno plays, I'm a little more optimistic about the 49ers Seattle game. That one could be fun, but you're right. And Andrea, you worried about Debo? And it's that thing that we talk about with the 49ers. They could go to any of those players. They could decide, this is our best mismatch this game. It could be a Debo game. It could be a Ayuk game. It could be a Kittle game. And it's always a McCaffrey game, right? But if they go, it's a real McCaffrey game, then nobody eats the passing game. So that's the problem, right? So it's tough. It's tough. But that's the problem when you have 4 mega stars at the skill positions on offense, right? Admiral, you're always welcome. Thanks. And Andrea, you have John. So you know what? So I just read today on NBC Sports website that Josh Downs has been dealing with a knee injury since OTAs. So that's 6 months ago, maybe longer. Well, it was 6 months probably. And so anyway, remember he missed 2. He came out of the game 2 weeks ago with a knee injury. The game before the bye, he only played 20% of the snaps. He caught 2 big first down catches. And if this is a problem he's been dealing with since OTAs and he missed time, now I'm officially nervous until I see him play a full game. So at this point, wheels up Tank Dell. And it's hard to say Tank Dell anyway, right? Because Josh Downs, his floor is very good, but he doesn't have Tank Dell's ceiling. And Tank Dell it's over 10 targets a game. I think it's 10, 11, and 14 in the last 3. And at this point, I could not tell anybody to sit Tank Dell unless you're in an 18 league and you have some, crazy opportunities there. So anyway, good there. If anybody wants to start questions answered, Tuesday, 5 Eastern. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Thank you for hanging out with me. Enjoy the games. Enjoy the food, the family. Hopefully you've got good things going on. I will be back with you on Saturday and Sunday. Again, take care, everybody. Love y'all.